Welcome back to Epic Exchanges. I'm Kelly Snider, your host, and you all know how much I love to share the stories of real people and real life, and that's what I'm excited to do today with my guest, Dana Harris. So, Dana, welcome. Why don't you introduce yourself for the audience?
Hey, hi, Kelly. I'm Dana Harris, and I am from Vancouver, North Vancouver, British Columbia, and I do media relations and events and whatnot. I'm sort of slowing down my business as we speak, but when COVID happened, I battled cancer, and I just wanted to tell my story about battling breast cancer, and oh, there it goes.
All right, like I said, real people, real
Yeah,
stories.
real people. Oh yes, and I'm a little bit of a crier, but I will, and I'm also, but I always say I laugh as hard as I cry. So get ready for some
Exactly.
laughter and some, yeah, real
Awesome.
emotion. So yeah, and it just, I just really wanted to pass on that this is my story. This isn't anybody else's story. This is everybody's journey in cancer is different. There's so many different types of breast cancer. There's so many different types of cancer. There's so many different stages, and there's a lot of changes or choices that you can make uh, that are your own. This is just me. This is what I did. This is how I dealt with it. Hopefully somebody will get some information out of that helps them. And people just make their own decisions as they go through. So I guess I'll get right on with telling my story. It's been a while, and this is the first time that I've done it this publicly. I did keep it. I was, I guess, lucky and unlucky that it was during COVID, and I was able to keep it under wraps for a while. So yeah, so when COVID hit in March, mid-March, I was walking with a girlfriend of mine, and I was pretty anxious, and she said, meditation is a good thing, and she told me about the Insight Timer app in meditation, and so I started doing that, and it really kind of calmed me down, and then I had been scheduled to get a mammogram in April. I always made sure that I was getting my mammograms done in the spring so that I would remember every other year. And that year, the clinics had all closed everywhere. And when they opened up, I was in on the second day. Ended up being May 29th that they opened up, and I got in line to get my mammogram, and then they took me over to the ultrasound area, which I thought was odd. And we'd always been watching a couple of cysts on my left breast, and so they took me over to the ultrasound place and started going through that. And then the technician said, "Here are your two cysts. They're perfect little circles, and here is something that we've just found today." And it was a nasty looking it just didn't look like a perfect little circle. It looked, and she said, this doesn't look good. So I kind of knew on May 29th that things were not going to look good. So went in for a biopsy. My husband remembers all the dates. I can't remember the dates, but it all moved pretty quickly because they were opening up all the medical systems, pretty quickly. And so I got in for my biopsy. And then on June 13th, I got the call from my doctor that indeed they'd found breast cancer. They didn't know what kind, they didn't know what stage, but they were going to go in and do it. So that meditation app really helped. I remember, okay, now I'm really going to use that meditation app. I think I was meditating about 6 times a day at that point in time. So they ended up going in for scheduling myself for surgery, but they couldn't get me in for an MRI, which they needed to do in order to find where the tumor was. And so I was scheduled for a surgery on a Monday. I believe it was around July 7th. And then they finally got me my MRI the Friday before, and I had my MRI the Friday before at about 4 o'clock. So it was, the MRI was a bit of a disaster to say the least, but they found it. And on the Monday morning when I went in for surgery, what they do is they take you into nuclear medicine, and they take a little wire and they give the surgeon basically a path to get to your tumor. So they were putting in a little wire to get to my tumor. And then they pulled out a second wire. And I said, "What's the second wire for?" And they said, "Oh, they didn't tell you. We found a second tumor." And I said, "Oh, get it out." Right. And yeah. And I'd already done all the signing of all the papers that I needed to do. And But now they had to come back and talk to me and give me all my options of what I talked to me about, whether I wanted to have a mastectomy or whether it was going to be a lumpectomy. And I stuck with the lumpectomy choice. Again, all the choices for everyone, but I stuck with the lumpectomy choice and had the surgery. Love my surgeon. She did a great job and got both tumors out. And within 2 weeks, I was brought back in, and they told me that it was a type of cancer. The first one that was a little bit larger was a HER2 positive cancer, and the second was a HER2 negative cancer. So two different types, but they're both estrogen fueled. And so they thought it was quite odd that in the same breast I would have two different types of cancer. The second one was quite new. The first one, the HER2 positive, was stage 2 and is a little bit more aggressive. It's not the most aggressive breast cancer, but it's aggressive. So I had that done, and they usually wait for about 6 weeks for you to heal from that. And so I healed, and my treatment was scheduled for chemo, and I was to get chemo for 6 months. And that was going to be 8 treatments once every 3 weeks. And the first 4 treatments were 2 different types of chemo. Breast cancer chemo is very aggressive. And then the second type of, they added in another type of chemo that had more side effects. And then they added in a drug that's called Herceptin, which is a miracle drug, and I love it. But I had to have 17 different every 3 weeks for that. So I was in for about a year and 3 months for treatments every three weeks. And then with the that was 51 weeks of Herceptin. I lost my hair. Like they said, you're probably going to lose your hair on, I want to say, day 10 at about noon after your first treatment. And it was day 10 at about noon. It was, it just started coming out. And I had decided to cut it a little bit shorter at the time. So I had quite long hair at the time, and I decided, and I quite liked it short, but it started coming out. So I only got to enjoy it for about a week. But my eyebrows stayed. And then when I started so I had the first 4 types of treatment, and then the next 4 treatments, then I lost my eyebrows, and I'd already lost my nose hairs, and which was odd because I actually got allergies today, but you lose your nose hairs, you lose your eyelashes, so everything's kind of watering. And then once I was finished my chemo, they give you a little bit of a break, not much, and I had radiation for 20 days, which everybody had said, oh, that's going to be a breeze, and it. You're in and out of radiation pretty quickly. Kind of Dean would drop me off. My husband would drop me off at the parking lot. I'd run in because it was COVID. Nobody else could come in. I'd run in. I'd have an appointment. He'd go park, make a phone call, come back, and I'd come back out. So I was in and out in 15 minutes. And I did 20 rounds of that, with the last 16 radiation, and the last 2 were targeted. And that was, I burned pretty badly with the last sort of targeted ones. And, always putting lotion on your chest, immediately after. And then, one of the tricks that I learned there was to make sure the lotion was I kept lotion in the fridge at home. So when I got home, I put more lotion that was in the fridge and kept it cooled. So that was sort of the treatment that I went through. Now, when that's done for the type of cancer that I had, because it was estrogen fueled, it was I was on a drug that's called letrozole. There's another one called tamoxifen. I don't know why I didn't get tamoxifen, but letrozole has worked quite well for me. And I was supposed to be on it for 5 years, but because I haven't had any major side effects, there's some side effects that have just recently creeped up, but I didn't have any side effects really that a lot of people get achy bones and whatnot. I asked if I could stay on letrozole for 10 years, and my doctor agreed that was a good idea. So letrozole, one of the things that it does is it reduces your bone density. So now I also have to go in every 6 months and get an IV of a drug called Zometa. And Zometa gives me I think a lot of people that have osteoporosis use it. I've got pretty strong bones, but she still wanted me to take Zometa every 6 months. So I've got to do that for, I think, 5 years, or at least while I'm on the letrozole, so maybe 10, I guess. Yeah, so I do that, and then I get an ultrasound and a mammogram every 6 months. To date, I've had 2 scares where they've brought me back from a mammogram. I have very dense breasts, and they've brought me back, and it's both times it's ended up being scar tissue. I am still waiting to hear back from my oncologist to make sure this latest scare is indeed that, but I'm assuming that it is. And my oncologist has also agreed to let me have an MRI every 2 years, so that just to ease, for mental health, really, to ease my mind that it's not going to be coming back. So that's the beginning of my story. You know, a couple of things that I needed to do when I was diagnosed. You know, you feel pretty sorry for yourself, and you're I remember it was going to be my birthday. Sorry, it was going to be my birthday, and I felt really sorry that I was, you know, I'm getting chemo on my birthday, and one of my dear friends said, "It's a gift, right? You've got to look at it as a gift." And so now I look. I was always very, very respectful to nurses and doctors, and I bought everybody in the oncology clinic scarves and a gift pack of Hornby bars, which are these organic bars and stuff at the end of it. But I always thank them for being a scientist and for doing this for us. It's still hard to talk about. Sorry. Anyway, some of the things that I just to help. Oh, and sorry, I cry, but I do laugh as hard as I cry. Some of the things um, that have helped me, and it was funny, my GP, when I was diagnosed, you know, they're busy. And one of the things she said was, "Are you on Facebook?" And I said, "Yeah, I am." And she said, "There's some good groups out there on Facebook." And they're just private groups that you can, you know, you can vent, you can tell your worst fear, you can ask questions, you can get a little bit more information about things. So she told me about a Facebook group, Canadian Breast Cancer Survivors. And then there's other ones that you can go to. There's ones in the United States, but there's also other groups if you're dealing with triple negative breast cancer. There's other groups for that as well. The other really cool thing that I was told when I first started was, my friend Nancy said, "Keep a diary of what this is like, what you're not how you're feeling, and not that, but what it's like, what your steps are, and and why you made the choices that you did." And she shared with me her diary that she'd done because she had been diagnosed, I think, about 4 years before me. And so she had done her diary, which was a bit difficult to read. And then, but immediately within the first day, we were on completely different paths. Hers was a HER2 negative, mine was a HER2 positive. Our choices were completely different. But she said, share your diary with people. And so I shared it with a bunch of people that were on that Facebook group, right? And she said, "And you can share mine too." She'd removed her name and I'd removed my name. But I just said, you know, it just gave people an idea of what to expect. And I thought that was a really good gift. The other support that I loved during this treatment was, there's a charity in Canada, but it's also, you don't have to be Canadian. You can also join from wherever you'd like. Because there were people from Barbados on a couple of calls, but it's called Inspire Health. And Inspire Health offers, and it's based out of British Columbia, but it offers counseling. When you go to your oncologist, if you are, you know, sometimes you only get 20 minutes with your oncologist and you've got an hour and a half worth of questions, and then you walk away and you're confused about what you heard, you can take all the information that you've received and go to one of their retired doctors, and they will spend 2-3 hours with you going through what it's going to be like for you. So Inspire Health is just a wealth. And then they've also got courses on exercise, courses on, like do yoga, nutrition courses. And it was easy for me because it was COVID and it was all on Zoom. So I was able to just go on to Zoom and take these different courses and learn about all the different things that were going to happen. I immediately got, as soon as I was diagnosed, I immediately went and got a counselor, and I went to speak to I'm just going to turn my notes over a little bit because I had to make notes on this. um, I got a counselor, and then I immediately went and went back to my naturopath, who uh, was fantastic. What I loved about my naturopath was that she didn't give me any things that I needed to go talk to my oncologist about. It was just different ways to eat and different things to do to change your mindset, to go out and walk in the trees was one of the things. Go out and walk in the trees. There's oils that come off the trees that will help you. Make sure every day that you take your feet and you put them on the ground, right? And I remember you telling me once, go down, if you're near the water, put your feet in the water, and just, it grounds you. And so that sort of thing that, A, doesn't cost money, A, good for you. You don't have to say to my oncologist, I'm doing this crazy thing and I'm going to go walk in the trees. What do you think? Should be like, you should be walking more in the trees. But yeah, so and the other thing she did was taught me a lot about different foods that I need to eat. And there are different foods that fight cancer. They're carnivorous vegetables. So I'm a big cabbage, broccoli, cauliflower person now. So she really helped me through that. You know, I was a little bit worried when COVID happened because it was such a sad time for everybody. And you remember I was diagnosed kind of in June, COVID sort of hit, and we were all in lockdown in March. I was a somewhat public figure. I was running a charity and in the hospitality industry, and a lot of people knew my name, knew my face, and I made the choice not to share what was happening to me on Facebook. I just thought everybody was sad enough as it is, that they didn't need to be any sadder. So, but the people that I did share it with, I said, I will add a hashtag that says, I got this, hashtag I got this, to any little post that I'm doing, just so you know that I'm okay, right? You don't need to comment about it, but just, you're going to know I'm okay. So, um, my friend, again, Nancy, who had shared the diary with me, she also shared the note that she sent out to her friends, right? Which is a difficult one to write. And I wanted to make sure that I wasn't sending emails and answering questions to a bunch of people. So I wanted to send them weekly updates. Actually, there's a kind of a funny story with that. Which I just got to remember about that. So I'm gonna write it down. But so Nancy shared her note that she was sending out to friends, and I just adjusted it to make, took some of her good lines and then added some of mine and sent that note out to friends. And so I had a group of about 30 or 40 friends and family that I was updating. And the funny story with that is, although Dean didn't find it very funny at the time, was I would usually get him to edit I'm going to my first chemo and blah blah blah, I'll let you know how it goes, and sent it out. And I think I said, Dean can come to the first one. That's what I said. I said, Dean can come to the first one, but after that I'm on my own. And I'm on my own because people can't go there during COVID, right? Usually you could have a guest there. But Dean, I came walking down, and Dean, I said, well, I just sent out my note. He goes, yeah, you should probably, pass that by me. He says, people are going to think that I'm not coming with you to your chemo because I don't want to. And I was like, no. People wouldn't think that of you. And sure enough, I looked at my phone, and my friend Phyllis wrote me and said, oh, and she lives, probably 40 miles away from me. She goes, I'll come to your next chemo. So then I had to go back and tell everybody, no. Dean would take the chemo for me, trust me. And anyway, so sharing that, Nancy sharing that information, that helped me a ton because I didn't have to write that for me. A couple of the other things that, were that happened. Kelly, you were the first person that I were allowed to say that we're friends. I hope you were the first person that I walked with, and that was, you're always a good ear to chat to. And then a couple days later, I decided that I was going to go and walk with my best friend, and I was going to go see another close friend of mine and drop off some product to her that I was some samples of wine that I was doing for a client, and talk to her a little bit about it. And because at the time she was a good friend, you do lose friends with through the journey. And then I was going to see another girlfriend of mine and her husband down the street. It was clearly too much for me to go talk to three people at this on the same day, and when by the time I got home, I was a bit of a mess. But what was kind of funny was every time that I got into my car, the Beatles song Revolution would come on. At some point in time, I drove to East Van, did a 2-hour walk, and then I, changed stations, I hope. And the line is, everything's going to be all right, right? And then when I got to to the last stop that I was going to, the husband had put on a playlist, and that was the second song that came on. And so every time I hear that song, I think, everything is going to be all right. So, the other, I'm just sort of making a mental note here. The, some of the things that you could slip pretty easily into being sad, and you've got to really, really, really push yourself to stay in a happy place when you've been diagnosed with cancer and you're going through treatment. And I had this one day that, I was bald, didn't feel attractive, and I was still trying to do some work with my company, and I had a friend over sort of unpacking some boxes and repacking some boxes, and I just kept going down. I'm a bit of a workaholic, and I kept going down to try and help her, and I just didn't have the energy. The chemo had drained everything from me, so I'd go upstairs and I would lie down and have a little cry, and then I'd go back downstairs, and try and help her, and it wasn't good, and it wasn't going as quickly as I wanted to, and I just wanted to help, and I couldn't. And that day, I remember everything finished with my friend, and I looked at Dean was heading out to have a walk with one of his buddies, and I think they were going to have a beer or something, and so clearly the restaurants were back open, but they were going to have a beer. And I remember watching him leave, and he was just looked so sad, and probably looking at me, he looked so sad leaving. And I came back and I kind of looked at myself in the mirror, and I went upstairs, looked at myself in the mirror, and I thought, you got to get your shit together. And I said, you got it. So I hopped in the shower, didn't wash my hair, but hopped in the shower, cleaned up, put some good lotion on my face, sat down and meditated for a little bit, went and grabbed one of my favorite scarves and I had thought that I wasn't going to get a wig, so that was a mistake. So I got a scarf and tied the scarf around, and then I put a little bit of lipstick on, and I remember standing there watching Dean come back. His friend was dropping him off, and watching him walk up the stairs, and he just looked sad, right? He was just, what am I going to walk into? What's it going to be like? And when he got there, it made me look better at and he was just so happy to see that I had a smile on my face. And I said, you know what? I just have to make sure that when I get up in the morning, I have a shower, I feel good about myself, and I carry on. I can't, I put a playlist together so that when I was feeling down, I would have music that I could dance to. So those are some of the things that's a bit of my story. Did you have any questions?
Oh, lots, always,
Lots. I can tell you a couple of my sort of, some tools that I use and I still use, and I like to make myself laugh, and I always joke that I'm the funniest person I know. So I do little things to make myself laugh and to keep myself happy. And one of them, I've got a gratitude app. I think it costs me $50 a year or something like that, and I just check in with that every day. It has a different different quote, and then you thank the people the three things that you think worked out well today, and you kind of a check-in. The other one I talked about a little bit earlier was I did a playlist, because when I was first diagnosed, and Dean was still working, Had to be on Zoom calls. He was leading a large team of people, and when he would go into his room, his office, and start working, I would go into full panic mode, right? And I was like, I got to do something. I said, so I'm going to put a playlist on and I'm going to go downstairs. I'm going to dance. So I would go, and it was just all my, Salt and Pepper and all my 80s tunes. And I would just go downstairs and dance. And that helped me a ton to just not, I mean, it's good for you and to feel better. Some of the other things, I got some rose quartz from some friends. Um, I keep them with me still. I keep them in my purse, but I've got a bracelet that I wear, and I think I talked about meditation. Oh, another funny one is every treatment that I went to for chemo, I would have you got to stay warm and stuff just for your needles, and but I always had a Wonder Woman t-shirt on underneath. It was my superpower, and I'd have Wonder Woman socks on. Those were kind of my superpower that I would take to my chemo session, and I kept that shirt, and I keep that, even when I was just packing up to go on a trip that I'm on right now. I take that shirt with me in case I ever need to remind me that I need to be good to myself, and that I need to take care of myself. The other thing that I did once I got through
Oh,
the treatment
uh-oh.
was, oh,
I'm not sure if you froze or I froze, but
you froze.
I'm still recording. I'm
Okay.
not sure what's happening.
Okay, well, I'll keep
Oh,
going. Oh, there
oh,
you go.
hey, you're back.
We're
We're
back.
back. Okay. Your Wonder Woman shirt.
My Wonder Woman shirt. So yeah, I love my Wonder Woman shirt, and I have Wonder Woman socks, and I actually have a Wonder Woman cap, but they're all just meant to make me smile when I to make me feel empowered. The other thing that I have here, I'm a golfer, and I have a ball mark. So when you hit onto the green and you go up to mark your ball, it's a happy face, and I put it down, and I always remember that that makes me think that I'm loved and everything's going to be okay. So I've got those as sort of tools. I keep that Wonder Woman shirt now that I'm 3 years past the treatment. I I don't want to forget that I need to eat organic, and that I need to exercise a lot, and that I need to take care of myself. I need to limit the amount of alcohol that I drink, and or not drink at all, and just eat organic and whatnot. So the other thing that I do is I keep that Wonder Woman shirt on, and a couple other things that I kept during my treatment, in order to make sure that I just remember that, I am, I had a tough go. So just sort of wrapping it up, where I am now, um, we decided after my treatment was finished and I got my first clear mammogram that, I would work remotely from, the south in Palm Springs, and I got approval to do that through my the charity I was working with. But then Dean decided that he would quit. He had a bigger job, and we needed to see how that sort of played out. And so he gave his notice, but stayed on till April. So we're just starting our fourth year now. It's changed my life. We're on our fourth year in Palm Desert in the winter. I'm definitely slowing down how much I work, but I do love to work. So I'll always volunteer if I'm not working. I still work out a ton, and I used to think that cancer defined me. Like, I used to think, you walked into a room, everyone would be like, "Oh, there's the girl that had cancer." That is no longer the way that I think of myself. And I went down the path about after my first scare of thinking that it was coming back. I was started thinking, did I make a mistake and not get a mastectomy? And so I sort of followed that path for about a year on whether or not I would get a double mastectomy. And I just recently decided that that I'm not going to, because I'm feeling better. And the first year after cancer treatment is you still feel pretty sick, and then the second year you're still, I would say that I was mentally still pretty depressed, and still needed to do everything to keep myself happy. And then I really don't want to go through that again. I think it would be a big step. So that's my choice. Now, that being said, all those choices will change if it was ever to come back. Let me see. Try the other thing that I do is I try not to let people piss me off as much as they used to. That's not always possible. They're people. I'm a person. Yeah, and we sold our house about a month ago, and we're gonna, take some time to travel and not worry so much about things. So yeah, yeah, there we are. Guess I
Okay.
got, yeah.
So, the theme, and I don't know if this is something you've noticed, but the theme that I was getting, and yes, I was in your life through all of this, so I know more than a lot of people listening, obviously. But um, the theme that I keep seeing coming up is the power of positivity in with your mindset, with the people that you surrounded yourself with, the playlists, the things that made you feel good. You found what those things were
Yeah,
and you curated who was in your life from doctors, from support networks, and all of these things to encourage that positive mindset, that positive energy rather than the poor me. And
yeah,
I know we can all fall into that and we all have times and moments and it's never all roses.
yeah,
But if someone that is listening either has been diagnosed with cancer, is going through their own cancer journey, or knows someone, cares about someone that does, what would you say are some of the best and perhaps the worst, because I'm sure you had both,
yeah.
ways that you would suggest they support or not support those people in their lives?
Yeah. Yeah. Um, I think when people are diagnosed with cancer, you shouldn't be afraid to speak to them. Try not to back out of their lives. I did make it pretty clear that I didn't want people to call me without texting me first because I didn't know what mood I was going to be in, right? And my brother called one day and caught me on a bad day, and the day that I thought I was going to die, and and he and then I just said, you can't call me like that, right? I don't do that. So the best thing that someone did, again, these are things that don't cost any money. Some of them cost a little bit, but my stepmother would text me a heart every morning. She would mail me a card every week. I had another friend who would drop off organic green tea, and which I drink organic green tea every day. And she came to visit a couple of times. I think, friends that gave me the rose quartzes. I had other friends who, you know, losing your hair as a person is difficult. Losing your hair as a woman is like it was a bit of my identity. I had long, thick hair, and I had good hair. Um, and losing my hair, and I had a friend that kept saying, "It's just hair. It's going to grow back." Well, that's not. It's going to grow back in like two years, and in the meantime, I'm going to look really like a cancer patient. And don't say that. Just be empathetic with people about it. I've got a couple of their notes that I made of do's and don'ts. Yeah, the text from my stepmom is every morning. Like it doesn't cost anything. It just makes people know, or let me know that I was being thought about. The organic green tea. People came and took me out for a walk. One of the best things you can do to battle cancer is, and I'll just speak to breast cancer, is exercise, exercise, exercise. And people got me out for walks. The Herceptin that I was taking for 51 weeks via IV, the miracle drug, it uh, it affects your heart muscle, and so I had to keep going in for ultrasounds on my heart, and so I had to really work on cardio. So we had quite a steep hill that was behind us that I would go and I would walk up and down that if I could. In the beginning, the first week I could do it once. By the second week I could do it two times. By the third week I was good, and that was a cycle with chemotherapy. Was you feel okay the first week, you feel 50% the third. No, you feel shitty the first week, 50% the next week, and then you feel okay the third, right? So it was also accumulative. So, I had another friend that just all of a sudden I got crayons, and like some pencil crayons and a coloring book, and I would just sit and color that. And a couple people made me toques and stuff because I was constantly cold, even though our place was, I think, 90 degrees. I was freezing. Yeah, just don't be afraid to reach out to them. Maybe text first so that you don't know, what you're getting, but just send them a heart. And then if they're able to talk, they'll talk to you. Yeah.
And one of the things that I want to go back to, because you mentioned that your friend Nancy gave you the email that she sent out, and you sent out an email, and I got to be on the receiving end of that email. And one of the things that you were really clear about in that email was, what you could and could not handle at that
Yeah.
point. Because, and I remember you actually said in that email, please don't call without texting first. I don't know how I'm going to be feeling, if I'm going to be up for a conversation, where my mindset's at, but always text first. Or I will, and you also said that you would do your best to keep people informed.
Yeah.
And I know for me, more often than not, I'm the person that I will wait till someone kind of reaches out and is ready rather
Yeah.
than pushing.
Yeah.
Trying to respect where they're at and in their space and all of those things. But everybody has their different things. Now you mentioned some friendships, relationships have slipped away, and
Yeah.
I'm sure you've had more people come into your life
Yes.
because of the different support networks and everything. Um, what did you learn about yourself in relationships and the people that you surround yourself with the most during this time that you are bringing forward?
Yeah. I think I just don't get caught up in people's complaining about small stuff. And I also don't get caught up in my own, try not to get caught up in my own complaining about small stuff. It doesn't matter, right? It doesn't matter that, service is a little slow, or it doesn't, it doesn't matter that, you missed an invitation to an event. Those sort of things, maybe it's a blessing that you missed that invitation, right? That things happen for a reason. And my true, I made my true friends were great. And some people that I didn't think would step up, stepped up, and some people that I thought for sure would step up just didn't. And I really had to sort of choose who I walk away from and who I stick with, um and how I spend my time. Yeah. The other, just one other thing was Dean. There's another person here in my life that had to go through it, and he always says, I had the tough part, but he had it tough. And um people kept telling him stories about, like, he would say, my wife's got breast cancer, and they would immediately go to the story of the person that died of breast cancer, right? And I'm here to say that I've had 17 friends diagnosed since I was diagnosed. I know a lot of people, but that, and some are, I don't know as well. But I stopped counting at 17 because it got a little bit depressing, and I thought that's not a good thing to do. But we're all still here, and it's a diagnosis, but the scientists have made a lot of progress with breast cancer over the past 10 years. And yeah, Herceptin, which I talk about, there's a great movie with Harry Connick Jr. playing the doctor who developed Herceptin, and it took him like 12 years to get it approved, but it really is, for my type of cancer and for other men's cancer, is a really amazing drug.
So now I know, and because you've talked about what work has looked like, and now you've sold your home and you're gonna try out all kinds of things for the next 18 months. But what are some other ways that your life has changed or not changed because of this?
Yeah, I was in the wine business, and so I probably, I've had wine every day. I don't do that anymore. I limit, my wine is with food. Although I still make mistakes, even a ski instructor breaks their leg. And, when I get together with some girlfriends, I might have 3 glasses of wine, God forbid. But if I don't beat myself up when that happens. For the first well, it didn't happen at all in the first 2 years after treatment, but, uh, on occasion, if I am in a social environment, we're having fun and I have a little extra wine, I don't beat myself up anymore for that. Life is life, and I gotta enjoy my life. And I always enjoyed sitting with my husband and having a glass of wine, sitting with a girlfriend having a glass of wine. But now I incorporate more walks. I'm like, let's go for a walk first, right? Or let's go have a cup of tea. And I drink. I sleep a lot more. I've always loved my sleep though, but I sleep a lot more. I am a lot more mindful of what I'm doing and how I'm treating my body and how I'm reacting to other people. Right? I'm sort of water off my back um, if somebody disagrees with anything that I've done or any of the efforts that I put forward. Water off my back. That's the
Right. Um, okay, so this is a little bit different for our chat with Dana because Dana is not promoting a business or a book or something else. And so if you have questions for Dana or just want to offer some support, please do so on the episode wherever you listen to it. Leave a comment or a question and on our Facebook page where we will tag Dana in all our posts. Um, we're not asking you necessarily to follow her or to connect with her, but you can do that privately. But Dana, one last question that I would love to ask you. If you were to write a book or a chapter about your story, what would you call it?
What would I call it? Um, I would almost, yeah, I mean, I want to say finding humor in some ways because I always had to find ways to make myself laugh. Um, I would probably call it "You Got This," right? And hopefully nobody else that is listening to this is diagnosed, and none of their friends are diagnosed. But I would say that was my mantra all the way through: is "I got this," and hashtag "You got this."
Well, and I think that's good for us all to remember that no matter what we're going through at whatever time, even now with life and not having a permanent home, maybe, like
Yeah.
we're both in that situation at the moment, we've still got this, no matter.
Yeah.
So thank you for sharing your story.
Thank you.
I've wanted you to do this for a while, and I was so excited when you first mentioned it, and I didn't have to come and ask
Took
you.
me a while to come around to it, but no, I love your podcast. I tell lots of people about it. I appreciate you having me on.
Well,
I hope
thank
it
you.
helps somebody.
I am sure that you'll help so many people. So
Yeah.
thanks again.
Thank you.